She told the realtors I was the caretaker of the house my father left to me while I was still living in it. At first, I thought the sign was for a neighbor's place, an old fixer-upper across the way that had been empty for years. But when I pulled into the gravel drive, my coffee nearly tipped out of the cup holder. There was a for sale sign stabbed into the front lawn, right in the middle of the daffodils I'd planted that spring. My family's house. My home. I got out of the car slowly, like maybe this was some weird mistake I could just back away from. But the real estate sign had Carla's name on it. Carla Lane. My stepmother. I hadn't seen her since the funeral. Barely heard from her. But apparently, she'd had time to list the house I was still living in. My legs felt like jelly. I pulled the brochure from the box. Charming countryside home with potential. Motivated seller. Available for quick closing. The photo on the cover was blurry, but that porch? That was our porch. My dad built it the summer after my mom died. I remember holding up the railing posts while he hammered, both of us pretending not to cry. I felt something crack inside me. Slowly. Quietly. Like a board rotting underfoot. Back inside, I sat down hard on the steps and tried to breathe. The house smelled like maple and dust. The floors creaked the way they always had. A basket of laundry was still sitting in the hallway, halfway folded. This wasn't a listing. This was my life. The only life left, after Dad. Flashback, 3 months earlier. It was the night before he passed. He was dozing in his armchair by the window, a knitted blanket over his knees. The kind of Vermont October night where the wind rattles the glass and the wood stove does all the talking. I left the house to you, you know, he said, eyes still closed. I looked up from the old photo album I was flipping through. You did? Course I did. He opened his eyes then. Carla's got that condo in Bennington. This place, this land, it's yours. I tried to keep my voice steady. Was it written down? He gave a small grunt. Will's in the roll top. Signed and sealed. I filed a copy at the courthouse. She knows. I nodded. But I didn't ask to see it. I was too busy trying not to lose him. And now, 3 months later, I was sitting on the same staircase, looking at a real estate sign in my front yard. I called Carla that afternoon. My voice was shaking. She answered on the second ring. Abigail, she said, way too brightly. How's the house holding up? I saw the sign. What sign? The for sale sign. In the front yard. She was quiet for a beat. Then, casual as can be, oh, that. I meant to call you. Call me to say you're selling my house? Her voice dropped into that smooth, pitying tone she always used when she thought I was being dramatic. Abigail, honey. There was no formal will on file. I had to do what was best. I lived with him. I took care of him. He told me. I'm sure he said a lot of things. She clicked her tongue. Grief is tricky, Abby. You might be remembering things the way you wish they were. It was like being gaslit by a Hallmark card. You never liked this place anyway, she added. Too many trees. Too much upkeep. Then she hung up. That night, I tore the house apart. I hadn't touched Dad's desk in months. It was still how he left it, half a crossword puzzle from October, a jar of pens, an old mug from a bait shop in Maine. The drawer stuck, like it always did. He used to jiggle it with 2 fingers and curse under his breath. It made me smile, just barely. Behind a stack of blueprints, I found it. A manila envelope. Labeled in his tight block letters, to be opened if necessary. Inside was the will. Signed. Witnessed. Notarized. Filed the week after his diagnosis. Everything, the house, the land, the contents, left to me. I sat on the living room floor and felt the hardwood press into my spine. It was real. I was not crazy. I had been grieving, not hallucinating. Carla lied. She lied. The next morning, I called a lawyer. His name was Tom Kingston. Montpelier-based. Sharp, but calm, the kind of calm that makes you feel like maybe you can fight someone who's been sharpening knives behind your back. I'm holding the original will, I told him. She said it was lost. He asked me to read it over the phone. After I finished, he said, "Don't leave the property. Keep everything in your name for now. I'll be there tomorrow." Then he added something that stuck with me. If she's listing the house before the title's transferred, it's not just sketchy, it might be fraud. The rest of the day passed in a daze. I made tea and didn't drink it. I pulled out photo albums and closed them again. Everywhere I looked was some version of Dad. The oil stain on the garage floor from his old Ford. The crooked light switch in the hallway he never fixed. The garden bench he built but never finished sanding. This house wasn't just four walls. It was his fingerprints. Later that afternoon, 2 realtors showed up. Matching clipboards. Matching smiles. "Hi there," the taller one chirped. "We're here for the open house consultation?" I stared at them through the screen door. "There's no open house." "Oh, Carla said you were helping out?" "She told you I was the caretaker," I said, letting the words sting the air between us. They both looked awkward. The younger one tapped her phone. She signed a listing agreement. "Well, I have a lawyer," I said. "And a will. And if either of you sets foot inside, you'll be explaining yourselves to a judge." They left. Quickly. That night, I sat in the den and reread the will by lamplight. My father had chicken scratch handwriting, used ampersands like it was still 1972, and wrote a personal note at the bottom. "Abby, take care of this place. It's always been yours." That's when I cried. Not the angry, sharp crying I expected, but something softer. The kind that comes after months of holding your breath. He'd seen me. Really seen me. And Carla had tried to erase it. I got an email just after midnight. Subject line, "Open house rescheduled, Saturday at noon." I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. She was going through with it. Even after I told her I had the will. Even after I showed the realtors the door. She thought I'd be gone by the time they came back. But I was still here. And this time I wouldn't be answering the door alone. I didn't go downstairs when the open house started. I sat in the attic, knees pulled tight, the will tucked beside me like a shield. Through the slats of the vent, I could hear them, polite footsteps, a realtor's sing-song voice, the faint creak of bedroom floors being stepped on by strangers. The ceiling groaned beneath unfamiliar weight. My house. My father's. And they were already imagining where their couches would go. I knew they couldn't legally buy it, not yet, not with the paperwork Tom filed, but that didn't stop the show. Carla never cared about rules when appearances were at stake. To her, perception was law. If it looked like the house was hers to sell, then it was. And if I looked like I was hiding in the attic, maybe I was just a squatter. A caretaker. A sad little girl who couldn't let go. That's exactly how she wanted people to see me. But I let her have that image. I let her build it. Because the only thing louder than revenge is silence. The next day, I watched the real estate site. My house was all over it, poorly lit photos made to look romantic, wide angles of the living room that conveniently didn't show Dad's recliner still tucked in the corner. The caption called it a transitional opportunity, whatever that meant. I wanted to scream. Instead, I clicked save as and downloaded every single file. Evidence. Tom told me to keep a folder, so I did. Every time she crossed another line, I documented it. I stayed quiet. I didn't post online. I didn't text anyone. I let the days stretch long, let the town start to whisper that maybe I had moved on. That maybe Carla was just doing what she had to do. But they didn't see what I saw. They didn't know what I knew. The turning point came in the form of an email, not to me, but to the town clerk's office. A public filing, viewable by anyone who knew where to look. I got the alert because Tom had set up a search flag. The subject line was short, but it made my stomach flip. Pending, under contract, Lane residence. I sat back in the chair. My mouth went dry. She hadn't just listed it. She was telling the town it was sold. I called Tom immediately. He didn't even say hello. I saw it. She can't do that, right? She can try, Abigail. She's bluffing. It's not enforceable unless a judge sides with her. But she's setting up the story. She's trying to look legitimate so when you fight back, you'll seem like the villain. So she's just staging a con? She's creating paperwork smoke so she can claim there's a fire. The next morning, I heard her voice for the first time in weeks. It came through my phone, clipped and chirpy. Abigail. You've been so hard to reach. I said nothing. I hope you're well, she continued, like we were old friends catching up. I just wanted to give you a heads up. There's a family very interested in the house. Young couple, 2 kids. You'd love them. I think they'd really bring life back into it. My throat tightened. The house isn't for sale, Carla. Oh, Abby, she sighed, and her tone changed, suddenly syrupy, layered with that fake sympathy she always kept holstered. You're grieving. I understand. But clinging to the past isn't healthy. You don't even like living out there. You never did. I liked living with my dad. She didn't reply right away. Then came the real reason for her call. I'm offering you something kind here. A chance to walk away with dignity. No court dates, no headlines. If you'd just sign those documents I left you, this can be smooth. Clean. You want me to erase myself. I want to help you move forward. You could find your own place. A smaller home. You always said you liked Burlington. I was 22 when I said that. You've never heard me say it since. Silence again. Then, colder now, you should know, dragging this out won't end well for you. The longer you resist, the more aggressive this gets. I found the will, Carla. That's all that matters. And then she said something that made my skin crawl. That may be true, but who do you think the town's going to believe? The grieving widow, or the bitter stepdaughter who couldn't let go? She hung up before I could answer. I didn't even realize I was shaking until I looked down and saw the coffee trembling in my cup. That night, I stayed up late. I went into Dad's old safe and pulled out every file, every house repair receipt, tax record, insurance renewal. I scanned them one by one, cataloged them. Labeled them in a cloud folder Tom could access. If Carla was building her narrative, I would build mine, piece by piece. Nothing flashy. No declarations. Just quiet, deliberate preparation. A few days later, I ran into Lila at the post office. She looked at me like I'd just risen from the dead. Abby. You okay? You haven't answered anything. I even called your aunt. I've just needed space. You mean from life or from Carla? I looked at her, and for a second, I wanted to tell her everything. But then I remembered what Tom said, don't overshare. Not yet. She's trying to sell the house, I said instead. Even with the will. She's pretending I'm not here. Lila's face hardened. That witch. She filed a contract. Isn't that illegal? It's not real. But she wants it to look real. She wants people to feel sorry for her, and doubt me. Lila crossed her arms. Do you want me to slash her tires? I almost smiled. I want you to keep this quiet. Just, for now. Lila nodded. Okay. But when this blows up, I want front row seats. By the end of the week, the gossip had spread. I overheard two women at the hardware store talking about how that poor Carla has to deal with the girl still living there. Another neighbor, old Mr. Pennington, mowed too close to the property line and muttered, "You should have just let her have it, sweetheart. Ain't worth the fight." And maybe that's what Carla was counting on. That I'd be embarrassed enough to leave. That I'd want to avoid becoming the crazy daughter who wouldn't let go. That I'd crumble beneath the weight of public perception. But I didn't. I sat at the kitchen table each morning with my coffee, quietly pulling more documents into my file. I updated Tom every 3 days. I never replied to Carla's texts. I never corrected the neighbors. I just waited. Then came the postcard. Mailed from Arizona. It had a picture of a champagne bottle and palm trees. The handwriting on the back was unmistakable. Closing date next week. Cheers to fresh starts. See. I stared at it for a long time. And then I wrote one sentence on a yellow notepad and slid it under the fridge magnet. I told him, enjoy it while it lasts. He thought I meant the champagne. She thought I'd faded away. But I wasn't disappearing. I was documenting everything she didn't think I could see. Carla made one mistake too many, and this one started with a forwarded email. It landed in my inbox on a foggy Tuesday morning while I was cleaning the upstairs linen closet, and I opened it without thinking. At first, I assumed it was another one of those spam closing notifications she'd been sending around, trying to pressure me into signing, but this one was different. It was a string between her and her realtor, discussing the buyer, a couple from Albany, apparently, and logistics around a pre-closing inspection. But what made me freeze was a casual comment tacked on at the end from Carla herself. She's still in the house, technically, but it's fine. She's emotionally fragile and won't put up a fight. She doesn't have the stomach for court. I read that line twice. Then a third time. Then I printed it. Because that was a lie. A provable one. One she put in writing and sent to a third party while knowingly trying to sell a house she didn't legally own. And she was calling me emotionally unstable to justify it. I didn't respond. I didn't breathe hard. I didn't even forward it to Tom yet. I added it to my folder, page 43, behind the notarized letter she submitted falsely claiming she was the sole heir. The story was starting to tell itself. And I was done being silent. 3 days later, I went into town, not to hide or lurk this time, but to be seen. I walked into the bakery and sat at the corner table, the one by the front window. I had a mug of tea, a blueberry scone, and a printout of Vermont's property inheritance law open beside me. Let them talk. Let someone take a picture. Let word get back to Carla that I was no longer hiding in the shadows, but sitting in broad daylight, preparing. It took less than an hour for me to get a text from Lila. Carla's at the co-op heard from Nora that you were parading around with legal papers. She's rattled. I wrote back, good. And then I slid the folder into my bag and left a very generous tip. The next morning, I pulled up the online listing again. It had been updated, freshly staged photos, a virtual walkthrough, and a new caption. Under contract, don't miss this final opportunity. Beneath it, a line from the realtor's blog read. Seller is navigating minor family tension with grace and strength, a testament to her professionalism. I stared at that word, professionalism. And then I called Tom. I'm not waiting anymore, I said. I want to send something to the buyers. He was quiet for a beat. You sure you're ready to play offense? She went public. I'll return the favor. I didn't send threats. I didn't scream. I drafted a clean, professional letter that simply stated the facts. That the house was currently under dispute in probate court. That I was the named beneficiary in the last valid will. That the seller had knowingly misrepresented her legal standing. That my attorney was prepared to issue an injunction to block title transfer if any further action was taken. I attached a copy of the will, the court filing receipt, and the email where Carla described me as still in the house, but harmless. Then I mailed it. Not digitally, not where it could be intercepted or denied, but certified mail, signed receipt required. 2 days later, the realtor quietly took the under contract sign down from the lawn. Carla showed up the very next morning. She didn't knock. She stood on the front porch, looking up at the house like she'd spotted mold on the siding. I opened the door, calm, and stepped outside, pulling it shut behind me. "What are you doing here?" I asked. She didn't waste time. I received a very angry phone call from my realtor. "That's unfortunate. You're sabotaging the sale." "I'm telling the truth." Her lips pressed together like she was physically holding herself back from exploding. "You've really changed, Abigail." "I haven't. I've just stopped pretending I don't see what you're doing." She took a step forward. "You're playing a dangerous game. This doesn't end well for either of us if you keep pushing." "I'm not pushing. I'm filing. You're the one pretending you're still in control." She blinked, then did something I wasn't expecting. She glanced behind her. Her car was still running. And in the passenger seat was Jeremy. I hadn't seen him in years, not since Dad's funeral. He looked older, broader in the shoulders, beard grown in like he was trying to look more serious than he probably was. I raised an eyebrow. "Bringing back up?" "He wanted to see the place," she said, too fast. Jeremy rolled down the window slightly and called out, "Is it true there's a will?" I looked him straight in the eye. "It's more than true. It's filed." He didn't say anything else. Carla turned on her heel and walked back to the car without another word. That was the first time I saw her flinch. Later that day, Tom sent me the next big break. She submitted a corrected affidavit to the court. She's trying to claim the first one was an accident. I could hear the smile in his voice. "That's panic, Abby." "She's panicking." I sat on the back porch and took it all in, the way fall was settling in, how the breeze was starting to cut through my sweater, how the trees in the back lot were already half bare. The house felt quiet but solid. Like it had been holding its breath right alongside me, and was just now starting to exhale. That Friday, Lila and I met for drinks. She picked a place in the next town over, somewhere Carla wouldn't dare go. We sat in a booth near the back and nursed cocktails while the fire crackled in a hearth behind us. "You know," Lila said, swirling her straw, "I used to think you were too passive. Back in high school, you always gave people second chances they didn't deserve." I gave a half smile. "People change." "You didn't change," she said. "You just stopped making yourself small." The next day, a rumor started that Carla had fired her realtor. I couldn't confirm it, nothing was posted publicly, but the listing vanished from the site, and the for sale sign disappeared from the yard by sunset. But the best part? It wasn't me who took it down. It was Jeremy. He did it while I was sitting on the porch. He didn't say a word. Just parked, yanked the post out of the ground like it had insulted him personally, and drove away. That night, I opened the drawer in my father's old desk and ran my fingers along the edge of the folder I'd built, every document, every email, every printout, all in order, labeled, sealed. Then I took out my phone and opened the voice recording Carla left on my voicemail a few weeks ago. The one where she said, "If you'd just sign those documents, we can pop the champagne. And then, dragging this out won't end well for you. And finally, they'll believe me, Abigail. You? You're just the girl who stayed behind." I hit save. Then share. Then send it straight to Tom. Because in 2 days, Carla would be arriving at the closing office. Expecting keys. Expecting champagne. Expecting applause. And instead? she'd be served. She walked into the law office like she owned it, heels clicking, blazer sharp, smile ready for the camera she imagined pointed at her. Carla always did have a flair for the performative. Even when she was about to commit fraud, she dressed like a woman accepting an award. I watched her through the glass as she approached the receptionist, tossing her hair and announcing, "We're here to finalize the closing on the Lane property." I didn't move. I sat in the conference room with Caroline Harris, my probate attorney, and a court officer from the county registrar. On the table were 3 heavy binders, one with all the evidence Carla thought would stay buried, one with the official cease and desist and fraud filings, and one with printouts of every misrepresentation she made since the day my father died. And behind the door, waiting for her, was the final signature line she'd never reach. When she entered and saw me sitting at the head of the table, she froze. Just for a moment. Her face did that thing it always did when she felt caught but refused to acknowledge it, smile too tight, eyes too wide. Jeremy was behind her, his hands in his pockets, gaze flicking uneasily between us. Carla forced a laugh. "Oh, Abigail. I wasn't expecting you here." I tilted my head. "That's funny. I wasn't expecting you either. This isn't your meeting." The court officer stood up and extended a document. "Carla Monroe, you're being served with an official injunction halting the attempted sale of the Lane property, along with a formal fraud complaint currently under review by the probate court." Her hand trembled as she reached for it. "Excuse me?" Caroline spoke calmly, but with steel in her tone. "You knowingly attempted to sell a property you do not own. You misrepresented yourself to realtors, buyers, and financial institutions. You ignored a will that was legally binding. And you did it all while Abigail was still grieving her father." This is ridiculous," Carla said, her voice breaking mid-word. "There's no way this holds up. The will it was old. It was signed and notarized," I said. "And it names me. You knew that. You admitted it, in writing, in voice messages, in every single interaction. You thought I was too broken to fight." She turned to Jeremy like he might back her up. But instead, his arms were folded, and he was staring at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You told me you had the legal rights," he said, his voice flat. "I did it for us," she whispered, stepping toward him. "You know that." "No," he said, shaking his head. "You did it for yourself. You lied to me. To everyone." She reached out for his arm, but he stepped back. "Jeremy, please." He turned and walked out. No one followed him. The room was silent except for the sound of papers shifting as the court officer began collecting signatures from the other side of the table. Carla stood there, hand still outstretched, before lowering it slowly. Her expression crumbled in pieces, first confusion, then shock, then anger, and finally something I hadn't seen in her before, fear. "I could lose everything," she said quietly, like it had just occurred to her. I didn't respond. Caroline did. "You might. But that's the cost of pretending you're owed something that was never yours." Carla's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at me one last time, and for the first time in all this, the cold smiles, the smug remarks, the fake sympathy, she looked small. Then she picked up her handbag and left without another word. The fallout spread faster than I expected. That same evening, word got out in the community. The buyer's agent, furious and embarrassed, pulled her entire team from Carla's listings. Her real estate license was suspended pending review. And when she tried to spin her version of the story at the co-op 2 days later, Nora from the bakery cut her off mid-sentence and said, "You told everyone she was mentally unstable. That's not grief. That's cruelty." By the following week, Carla was no longer invited to board meetings, community lunches, or the local Chamber of Commerce fundraiser, the one she used to chair. At the farmers' market, she stood behind a booth, trying to sell homemade candles and granola bars with a hollow expression while people passed by without stopping. Some didn't even look at her. Others did, but not kindly. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. Jeremy. It was only one page, handwritten. He apologized. Not for his mother, but for believing her. For standing beside her at the law office. For not seeing the truth sooner. He said, "You never raised your voice. You never fought dirty. And you still won. I respect that more than you know." At the bottom, he wrote, "I'm leaving Vermont. Starting over. I think I need to figure out who I am without her." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the same drawer where I kept the original will. I didn't need revenge against him. He'd seen the truth. That was enough. I spent the next month restoring the house, but not to how it used to be. To something new. Something mine. I pulled up the floral wallpaper in the dining room and painted it a warm olive green. I refinished the floors with help from Lila's cousin, who refused to let me pay full price. I hung the wind chimes Dad gave me when I graduated college, and every morning I opened the front windows and let the breeze in, carrying with it the quiet hum of birds and wind and a life no longer pressed under someone else's boot. I didn't throw a party. But one morning, I did bake an apple pie. I set it on the windowsill to cool and thought, this is how it should feel. Still. Steady. Mine. People began stopping by again. Nora dropped off a batch of fresh rolls and asked if I needed help planting mums out front. Mr. Dobbins from next door offered to fix the loose gutter. And Lila? She brought cider and a thick notebook and said, "You should write this all down someday. Call it something like How to Bury a Snake Without Breaking a Sweat." We laughed so hard we cried. I saw Carla once more, about a month after the court finalized everything. She was walking across the library parking lot, holding a manila envelope and avoiding eye contact with everyone around her. Her hair was pulled back messily, and she wore oversized sunglasses even though the day was overcast. She looked over her shoulder just once, and saw me watching her from the driver's seat. We held each other's gaze for a long, silent moment. She didn't wave. Neither did I. But I think she knew what that look meant. You tried to erase me. But you only taught me how to hold the pen. And that's the thing about people like her, they're so used to winning with whispers, they forget what happens when the truth is said out loud. I didn't have to ruin her life. She did that herself. I just made sure everyone saw it. These days, when I walk through the house, I don't hear her voice anymore. I hear my dad's laughter. The floorboards creak the way they always have, the porch swing sways just enough to remind me the world is still moving, and sometimes, when I open the old desk drawer, I find a note I wrote during the worst of it and smile. It just says, "Stay quiet. But don't stay still." And I didn't. She walked in thinking she owned the house. She left knowing she couldn't even walk back inside. And me? I didn't slam the door. I just let it close, and locked it behind her.